Hi, this is Lance Wallnau. Welcome to the Prophetic Views and News. This week, of course, we've got to skip over the debacle of how the media and the Democrats are closing ranks on the stunned reaction to the Mueller report. Now they're going to begin to torture lines of content out of context so as to feed the endless cycle of speculation on the president's competence to be in office because of quotes that are going to be tortured into public consciousness. It's going to be a continuation of this sordid attack, and it's not letting up because the left doesn't want the truth. They want to impeach Trump. And they'll do it with truth or they'll do it with lies. They'll do it however they can communicate to the United States. In the meantime, we have another issue which is really pretty critical. Texas is experiencing a border crisis. Now, let me just click through here. Coming up on our border now is another caravan. We have had, since 2017, we've had 1 million illegal immigrants coming in for the purpose of what? Why are the Democrats and weak Republicans allowing this? And this is like an education. Thank God for Donald Trump. So many of us would just be praying and doing our heavenly prayers and decrees and doing revival. We'd be illiterate on the whole business of discipling nations. Thank God for Trump. It's like we're getting a Civics 101 lesson we never got, and we still are trying to stay out of class and play hooky. But all these issues that are on the news, they're educating those of us that are willing to stop and go, what the heck's going on? And how does the gospel apply to discipling nations in these areas? We have 1 million illegals that came over in 2017. They are coming in, getting free education, free health care. They're dispossessing the jobs of Americans. And why is this happening? And why is Texas the particular target of so much of this? Well, here we go. Take a look at Texas. See, the Democrats know that they can flip this state, just like they did Colorado. Colorado! Read the Colorado blueprint. I'm just finding this out. It was the Democracy Alliance, Soros-funded groups wanted to flip one state. It was the red state of red states. We had Ted Haggard, then president of the National Evangelical Association with his church there in Colorado Springs, which was a going and blowing mega church. And then we had Focus on the Family with Dr. Dobson. And then we had, Every Church for Christ there in Colorado Springs, prayer movements. And so we had all these ministries. It was like the family church state. And the left said, if we could flip that red state blue, we could do the whole United States. And they went in and they flipped it. And they flipped it by being smart and strategic and organized and cutthroat and just going over the line of what is legal, but then, backing up. In other words, it was a well-funded, brilliant execution of shocking the Christians and the Republicans into realizing that a well-mobilized and organized minority can defeat a disorganized majority any day of the week. Texas is their next target. If they can flip Texas, they got America. Because Texas is the largest set of electoral votes, and they're going to hit that. I'm going to share that in the next segment. Right now, what you're looking at this, look at how the entire area where, isn't it interesting that where illegals are going, that's flipping blue. So they're literally flooding in through the border. As they come in, you're seeing the gradual conversion of the states. Now, this was the Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz demographics, but this is what's happening in Texas right now. And this is why the border, this is why they want to pour them in through this border, because their goal is to flip the state. Now, there's money involved. Why won't Mexico stop this caravan? Are they incapable? Don't they have the ability? Of course they could stop it. Why doesn't, look at Guatemala. We got the border right here. Why don't we, forget about building the wall up here. We should move a wall down here. But we don't have any jurisdiction over that wall. And the corruption in Central America will compromise the wall. But that's where the wall ought to go, right there. We got Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. What are they doing? Well, they're 56% of the illegal activity is going to be coming in from Mexico. We got like the rest of it is coming in from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, which is why Donald Trump cut off the aid. Listen to me. $26 billion worth of money comes in from the United States back in. It's actually higher than 20, it's 26. $26 billion comes into Mexico. And then there's billions of dollars going back in these other states. You think they want to lose that income? It's free money. Where's the money coming from? It's coming from illegals that come up here and send money back down there. So what you have is you literally have an incentivized immigration plan. The Democrats love it because they want to flip Texas and the United States. Well, now they're talking about the popular vote. They can't wait to get rid of the Electoral College. They believe that Hillary beat Donald Trump by 2 million votes. We'll talk about the Electoral College in a minute. I just want to throw this thought out there. You get rid of the Electoral College, you just got rid of Abraham Lincoln, because he was in there by the Electoral College. It's the genius of the founders to be able to put someone that represents the whole country instead of just the New York, Chicago, and LA. So anyway, we'll get to that in a second. What has happened here that involves the caravan that is moving? By the way, the present thinking is that the reason why this is kind of bothersome, because you see a lot of the flags that they're bringing aren't American flags. It's the smart American activists give them American flags. What they're really coming in with, they want to reclaim America for their own country. They're not interested in America. They're interested in the freedoms we have, but they're not necessarily patriotic about America. That's scary. So as you have the immigration swells coming in, 100,000 last month, just boom. If it was 100,000 Russians, the Democrats wouldn't mind, so long as they vote Democrat. That's what's interesting about them. So what we have is the trade wars that happen with America and China. Here's the interesting thing that most people miss. So you have Donald Trump working with trade with China. Now, do you know who the beneficiary was of that trade war? Mexico. Here's why. Because now that there's tariffs that are on, or taxes that are on Chinese goods and services coming into America, American companies are doing their business with Mexico. So Mexico gets the $25 billion of illegal money coming in from the illegal immigration, plus they get billions of dollars worth of trade coming in because the American business would rather work locally than do business with China, because now that we have tariffs, the economic advantage of working with China isn't there. They're going to Mexico. So this is why if Donald Trump decides that he's going to shut down the border, he can affect the now dark money. He can affect the businesses in Mexico, because if he can disrupt, he can't do it long though, that's the problem. If he shuts down commerce, then it affects economically the United States. This is why you have spineless Republicans all over the border areas whose businesses are affected by a trade disruption. Don't do it, don't do it. So they're sending cues to the president. We don't think it's a good idea. Now the president's gone, maybe I can't do it. He's running out of cards unless the American people put pressure on government, regardless of party, to deal with this. So, but there's dark money that's mobilizing these caravans. So what's happening is, as the wall discussion gets hotter, as discussion of sending the military to the border, of dealing with it, it's creating a desperation in the masses to get in faster. So we have, instead of 100,000 a month coming in. And primarily the Democrats are happy because they think they're going to be offering them free education, free money, free support. So they're going to be able to go ahead and have the advantage of this of American citizenship. So what we have is a crisis where the president himself doesn't have the support that he needs. It's going to take years to build this wall. And the only way that we could seal off this situation is if we do build the wall. And the president himself is trying desperately to put muscle into the conversation. But the news doesn't cover it except for a few channels. The people are ignorant because they're under the witchcraft of the bombardment of propagandized, leftist, media-funded messaging. I really do believe that it could be said that the modern media is actually a Democratic super PAC. I heard someone say that recently, and I thought, my God, that's true. CNN is a super PAC working for the Democrat Party. Wild. So I have somebody on our staff right now, Mercedes Sparks. Some of you guys know her and her husband, Larry Sparks, publisher with Destiny Image. Mercedes runs our VP of our operations, but she is a millennial female, has been looking at this. She's got a daughter. She's looking at the future. She's involved with a lot of our Washington work with the political people. I want to bring her on because she's been zeroing in on this, and we're going to do something. And I want you to pray for it, and I want you to get involved with it. We're going to go to the border. We're going to meet what's happening. We're going to do an expose. We're going to be working with some guys from Breitbart. We have other reporters that are coming, and we're going to literally do a press conference and expose from the mother's perspective the dangers of what's coming in to the United States through the border. And we'll be right back with that. All right, well, we're back again, and those of you that are observing can see there's somebody here. So this is Mercedes Sparks, wife of Larry Sparks. She heads up our operations with our organization. But listen to me. We have been talking about activism and being active and getting involved with what's happening in the country. And what will happen when you're answering the call of God is you actually end up getting involved. So as we're pouring over the information, I mean, it's just so mind-boggling that we don't have handles on this. It's like America is under this fog. It keeps on this witchcraft, like halting between two opinions. I don't care what the issue is, from a Mueller report to immigration. It's like, well, it's Christians themselves, like, well, I don't know. So why are you involved with this?
Well, yeah, so just to talk about a little bit what it is, I'm putting together a mom's caravan, and so it kind of sounds interesting, but what happened is back in February when Trump declared the national emergency, I mean, I have a lot of friends on Facebook that are Democrats, you know, left over from college, and they're commenting, hey, Mercedes, this isn't a national emergency, and I commented back, I was like, you know, it is, and if you want, we can go to the border, and that got me thinking, like, maybe I should go to the border. I kind of want to see it. Is it a national emergency? Maybe it's not a national emergency. I don't know. I just see what's on television. So the Lord, we've talked a little bit about this, but the Lord told me to be a little more bold this year, open my mouth, and He's going to fill it. So I started this Facebook page, and I just put it up there, and I said, okay, hey, if I go to the border, like, does anybody want to come? I'm thinking about bringing a group of moms down there. And so I've just had this massive response. I mean, the Lord's done something. I have no idea what's happened, but I had one lady respond. Her name's Diane, and Diane's like gift in life is organization and event management. And we've just really come together. And now I've got a group of like 25 moms. I have some dads, VIPs, you guys would know that I cannot talk about for safety reasons. And what we're going to do is we're going at the close to the end of April. Don't want to give you the dates for safety reasons because there's a lot of violence down there and a lot of corruption. And I've told every woman that's coming, this is not like a mom's vacation out. We're all going to hang out. This is very, very serious.
Let's go to the front lines.
We're going literally. And that's really what it's about. And I was talking to you about it. You had some great language of that. What I really want to do is I want to speak with the families, the women, the frontline families that are literally the human shield between all of the violence, the disease, the corruption.
The drugs coming in,
yes.
the sex trafficking. I mean, this is the cartels, folks. This is big, dang big business. There's money, and dark business that's working this system. It's scary. 1 in 3 women that are on the journey are saying that they're being sexually abused.
Well, can I talk to that for just 1 second? So the picture that you see behind us is there's a group that went a few months ago, and that's where this idea came from. And so Diane went with this group. They went to an elementary school that sits right on the border, and right next to this elementary school, I hope this isn't too graphic for your audience, but they have something there that's called the rape tree. And this is where men who assault women on the journey leave little trinkets like ladies' undergarments, wallets, necklaces of the women that they just assaulted. I mean, that's a thing down there. I could show you the pictures of it. It's horrific. And can I tell one more story too? That there's one lady who lives, her house, imagine if it's your house. This is my point, okay? Imagine it's your house, you have your kids there. She lives about 4 football fields from the border. She can't sleep at night because there's so much gunfire between the cartels and Border Patrol. She stays awake all night. And I mean, it just blows your mind. There's other things where women, like, again, moms, think it's you and your kids. You have to think to yourself, do I want to lock my kids in the house while I go to check the mail? Should I do that? Otherwise, illegal immigrants will come into your house and hide in your house. There's a lady she went literally to go check the mail, came back and heard noises in her laundry room. There were 2 immigrants hiding there. And she had to call Border Patrol to come get them. The thing is, they're not violent. Some of these, I mean, obviously there are violent people intermingled, but these people are lied to. They're being told, Americans want you there. You go there, you'll never have to work again. They love you there. That's what they're told in these other countries, and that's why they come here.
By my estimates, 266,000 of the arrests that were made were illegal aliens that have known criminal records. It doesn't include the 70% that never get caught or prosecuted.
Yeah.
Think about that, 266,000 in 2 years.
Yeah.
So that would be, if there's 1 million a year, that means that roughly 10 to 13% of the people coming over the border are the ones that you're reading about in the news that are shooting police or that are killing, because they actually, now think about it, this is not coming from America, like, you know, from Lancaster County to someplace. Honduras, El Salvador, these aren't modern, cultured, you know, like United States. These are nations that are in poverty,
yeah.
and they don't, so people are coming in without the civilizational element.
True.
And so 90% can be desperate. And we'll do a broadcast on Christian compassion versus Christian stupidity, because compassion is being able to recognize the stranger that is among you and supporting them. Stupidity is letting Al-Qaeda into the nursery.
Yeah.
So you know, so there's an aspect of this we have to get into.
Well, just one more thing is what they'll do too, and they're trying to smuggle people over. They know, because of the loopholes in the system, they know families won't be refused. So there's really two things here, is that a lot of times children will be taken that don't even belong to the families.
And so they're smugglers that are bringing in children, and they're going into the sex slave business in many cases.
Yeah, to get into the country. So it looks like I'm a part of a family, but they will drop, like I'm talking 45, 80 people that look like families over in one location, and then smuggle individuals over in another location, because the Border Patrol resources and ICE resources are stretched so thin they can't be everywhere they need to be. So that's when you have your real corrupt people coming into the country, or drugs come into the country, and the family caravans are being used as a distraction.
We've had a 300% increase in the last month over where we were last year. And like I said earlier, it's because as people in Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Mexico see that maybe Trump is getting serious about the wall, it's increasing the mobilization. But who in the world is mobilizing them? You know, you want to know the crime in this thing? Many cases, it's socialist-oriented Catholic churches. This is like the big, you know, subject nobody wants to talk about. It's how dark money is working through leftist-funded caravan organizers, along with complicit Catholic churches and other organizations who are smuggling and providing people kind of like along the route so that they can make it into the United States.
But what's even crazier, though, is once they cross the border, where are they all going? They're not all staying in Texas and in Arizona and in New Mexico. They're being bused to major cities. And like that's one of the things Diane and I were talking about the other night. Somebody's putting on buses, and they're being dispersed all throughout the country.
I'm praying, and this has to be an act of God, I'm praying that there is a veil that is torn over this. We need media. We need new media. We need documentary. I wish there was a 60 Minutes that could arise, that would be a Holy Ghost 60 Minutes that would literally show what is happening, because it's like a fog. I keep seeing this spiritual fog that's on America, so that evil is continuing to do its work because people don't see clearly. There needs to be a populist uprising that is neither Democrat or Republican. It's pragmatism, and it needs to whack these forces that are Ahab and Jezebel in government. And we need to really make this shift happen now. Well, do you have any final thoughts you want to give?
Yeah, that's what I am praying that God uses this trip. It was very organic. Everybody that's going is paying their own money to get there. They got to fly there. You know, it's a couple $100 for a hotel room. But the way that I'm praying God's going to use this is that He's going to shift the conversation. Is that I want, no doubt, is it a humanitarian crisis for the people that are coming here thinking they're going to get a better life. But it is, my heart goes out to the forgotten frontline families, the women and children and husbands that live along the border and have to deal with this day in and day out. Because if it was my house that backed, if it was my, yard that backed to the border, could you imagine it has to be hellish conditions, the terror and the fear that surrounds it.
What is an angel mom, just so people know? And are you going to have any moms and dads going with you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We're going to have, I think we've got about 5 different angel moms, angel dads. And so an angel mom and an angel dad is someone who's, or husband or spouse, is somebody who's lost a loved one to, they died because as a result of an illegal immigrant being here. Somebody that never should have been here, either in a shooting, in a vehicle crash, a DUI. I mean, it could be anything, but we'll have 5 or 6 of them, and we're going to talk to, I think it's somewhere in the number now is about 12 different moms who live along the border. And I want them to tell their story. And so my prayer is God uses this to shift the conversation in America away from the idea that this is a humanitarian crisis being suffered by immigrants. And we remember the Americans that live along the border, and we rise up. I mean, you think of like in Nebraska, all that flooding that just happened, or when a hurricane hits, and the outpour of emotion and sympathy and prayers to the people who are suffering. We have thousands of Americans along the border who are suffering, and it's like everybody wants to forget about them. Mainstream media tells you it's not a problem. Democrats tell you it's not a problem. And there are Americans who are suffering. So I want God to use it to change the conversation. So please pray with that, pray into that, pray for safety, and I'm going to cover as much as I can while I'm down there.
By the way, those that are dealing with, we had 70,000 deaths by overdose that happened last year. It would be like 100,000 deaths or more. The drug crisis with the methamphetamines, heroin, cocaine, are all coming in through the southern border, not through the ports, Boston, New York, and San Diego. It's coming through the border. So the drug crisis, the MS-13 gangs, I cannot believe that there is not a greater groundswell of outrage with the incompetence of government to deal with this. The president tried to issue an emergency, what's it called? It's called, when they make a national emergency, there's 31 ongoing national emergencies, 31 already in motion before President Trump gets in office. He declares one, and everybody freaks out in Washington. This has got to be fixed, people. And this is only going to get fixed when you get outraged enough. And so a lot of Christians, I talk to Christians a lot, and they go, well, yeah, we're not supposed to be upset. I think actually we need to have a whole new lesson on what it means to be stirred up and engaged, because the greatest sin that you could possibly have is apathy, selfishness, indifference, and cowardice. Cowards are thrown in the lake of fire. You never heard that sermon. The cowards are thrown in the lake of fire. And we got a whole lot of apathetic, just dodos that don't understand that if you don't engage and use your spiritual authority and your natural authority to lock the door at night and put boundaries out, that you will be run over, taken advantage of, and you'll lose the inheritance God gave you, not because God took it away from you, but because you didn't protect the borders that God gave you in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't even make sense, though. I mean, you fly a lot of places, and you have to have a passport to get in and out of countries. I mean, the logical conclusion, if we're just going to let everybody in, why do we need passports? Why do we even need, why is it such a big deal? Why do we have TSA?
Why?
You know what I mean?
And if you travel, anybody that travels knows this. And why do other countries take it so seriously? Why? Why not just open their borders and let people in? Well, evidently they know something we don't know. And so it's all political. It's political, it's dark money, and it's elite personal interest. And then you've got, and by the way, those millions of people that come in, the million people that are there now, this is why Republicans, you guys know why Republicans are so limp-wristed on this and why they're so weak. It's because they've got donors that have big businesses that have illegal immigrants that they hire, and they undercut and underpay so that they abuse these immigrant laborers.
Yeah.
And so they're taking the jobs Americans need, and the big corporate guys, this is why I understand why people get fed up with the game, but you got to get mad. You got to realize that The reason why Republicans don't go out, Democrats want the power, so they want all the voters. Republicans are stupid. They're willing to give the power to Democrats later on while they're in position now to go, make a name for themselves and get their contacts for their future. But their donors want the illegal immigrants because it's cheap labor.
Yeah.
And so we gotta slay this snake, cut off its head.
Yeah, I mean, and those workers are being abused as well, and that adds to the humanitarian crisis. But I think, obviously there are solutions in heaven that need to be downloaded over this whole topic, and the idea that we cannot come up with better laws to protect Americans, to protect those who are here, and to protect people in other countries. It's just. We got to focus on making Mexico great again too, making Honduras great again too.
That's for the whole other subject, which is we're talking about sheep nations, goat nations, and I live sometimes in that quadrant in my head, and I think, wait a second, I'm talking about this, we talk about this. It's so crazy because I was just in Guatemala, like a month ago, dealing with their election, and we need to see how Guatemala can deal with the corruption that is driving people out. Honduras is a corrupt nation. Guatemala is a corrupt nation. El Salvador is a corrupt nation. Mexico is a corrupt nation. Why do you think the president of Brazil and the president of Mexico, the number one issue that got them elected was dealing with corruption? Maybe right now, American corruption is what we're dealing with in the news cycle, and with the elections, and with all the fog that won't protect America. Maybe it's time we started zeroing in on the corruption in America and in these other nations, and that's where populist movements can rise up. You got Maduro right now is corrupt in Venezuela. Russia sends in its little army guys. 100 special forces are in there trying to solidify Maduro. Trump just sent a message through Bolton that says, "Stay out." It's that news you should be looking at, because there's corruption in this hemisphere is what we're dealing with in the elites that control economics and media and government. And there's a populist uprising. That's what we got to spark. And we'll find out how that works, because I think there's Democrats out there that actually are Bernie Sanders people. And this may sound strange, but I think that I think we got something in common with some of them, because they're not really about the social issues. They're about the economic injustice. They're about the fact that the system is gamed, because those elites that are working the immigration issue, they're holding back and suppressing the wages and the employment of the average American. So that's where you do have this populist uprising that says, why isn't Amazon paying more? Why is America bailing out Amazon in terms of taxes when they're so prosperous? Something is rigged in this thing. Yeah,
well, and the thing that the Lord's been talking to me about, which is one of the reasons I even felt a leading to do this, is because, to your point, I think corruption fills a void when good men and women of God don't step up into leadership, and when we closet ourselves in our prayer closet and we're praying, the answer is actually you. The answer is actually you getting involved and taking a step into activism, because that's one thing the progressive, Democrats, socialists, whoever they are now, they do very well as activism. And so it's going to take us, it's going to take normal people like me. I have a job, I have a kid, I'm a mom, but I got to go, and you got to go. So it's like we have to step into this role of leadership. Otherwise, corruption will fill that void.
Corruption will fill the void, and it's coming to a theater near you. Don't think that you're going to be untouched by this. It's not like America can absorb 1, 2, 3 million people. What's happening now is those people, the Democrats plan on entering them into the voter rolls. And they plan on actually, one way or the other, which we'll cover in a broadcast coming up later, on the Electoral College. There's right now, Colorado's already signed off on it. Oregon is next. Delaware's next. They have 178 out of 270 electoral votes. They are moving to flip the state's legislatures to give their electoral votes to the popular national vote. And whether or not they succeed, it tells you that one way or the other, then lowering the voting age to 15 or 16, one way or the other, these people are almost like fanatical about attaining the power to get their way in government. And if they do, that's pretty much the end game.
Yeah, well, and we got to land the plane. But what I was thinking, though, as you said that, is this idea that if they can't win in the arena of ideas, and they can't win like amongst voters and how it's working now, they're going to change the system. And we've seen them do that in the courts in the past, and now they're going after the whole electoral system so they can try to win, because they can't win fairly. They got to change the rules. There's nothing worse than playing a game with somebody who feels that way. Yeah,
change the rules. So what's the takeaway for you? God is actually moving. God has got the right man. Remember this, God did a supernatural intervention by putting Donald Trump in office. Mike Pompeo, a believer. Mike Pence, It's amazing that what we have working for us. And you can see all the frustration as the news cycle and the resistance in D.C. to good legislation that can save America. Let's start to pray that the veil comes off. After the Mueller report, they're doubling down on bringing Trump and opening up new investigations. I think it's about to backfire. I think there's enough common sense, people out there that are going, what? Why? What is this? And I think it's very, very possible that the tipping point's coming where there's going to be a backlash against people that have pure political agendas, and it's transparently exposed as such. They're not interested in America. They're not interested in you. And I think that's where the populist thing comes from. Yeah. So we're going to find out how to adjust ourselves for that. But we're going to be back again every week with these updates. I look forward to talking to you more. Don't miss the Bible studies, because the Word of God deals prophetically with everything that's happening right now. So for you and me, it's like Nehemiah's time. They had a sword in one hand. They had a trowel or cement and brick building machinery in the other. We have to be able to build. We have to be able to war. We have to know in the spirit what time it is, and we have to know in the natural what we ought to do. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again on our next broadcast. Thank you, Mercedes, for the update on this, the women gathering on the border.
Thanks for highlighting it.